Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys taking a little time to watch the video. Today we're going to be talking about if the sport of bass fishing would be better off without tournaments. This is a topic that has came up from time to time. I think it's a subject worth talking about. It seems to be on a lot of people's mind here lately. So I'm going to give you guys my viewpoint, my opinion on it, and I'd be curious to get your guys' back on that. Real quick, a couple of different things before we get started here, guys. Just our daily housekeeping tips. If you haven't had a chance, please subscribe to the channel, or please consider subscribing to the channel anyway. We're really pushing hard to try to hit that 100,000 mark. I'd appreciate everybody's help if you're inclined on liking the videos here. And also, please visit our View Product Shopping tab. When you click on the video, I list 30 products on there. If you go on there and click a product and click the site where it's on, click twice, channel gets some proceeds off of that, so it's a good way to support the info here if you like what's going on. Okay guys, let's talk about this. A little bit of a touchy subject, a little bit of a sensitive subject. One thing I want to say about this is I get a lot of blowback as far as my teaching here I do on the channel. I get a lot of criticism about people saying, well, if you're so great, Randy, why don't you do better in tournaments? I always want to preface that to say I've had my day in the sun. I'm over the hill probably as a tournament angler. However, I have won over $2 million fishing professionally in Bassmaster, FLW, and regional and local circuits. I've won several Bassmaster events, qualified for 18 Bassmaster Classics and Forest Wood Cup. So I've done my dirt time. So I feel like I've earned the right to talk about this. A lot of people may not have earned that right, but I think that myself and a lot of people, other people have, because it is a sensitive topic. So I wanted to preface it with that. So anyway, let's get a little bit about the tournament influence on fishing. I'll say right off the bat, yes, bass fishing, as far as the quality of our fishing in this country, it would be better off without tournaments. The one thing that I will say about that, the tournaments, the byproduct of tournaments. Now I'm not sure if this would have occurred on its own, but back in the early 70s, when Ray Scott initiated the catch and release programs and tournaments, that had a huge metamorphosis in the way people viewed fishing. Because before that, people just assumed that you caught bass and you kept them. You didn't turn anything back. I remember when I was a kid, you didn't turn bass back, but it was because of tournaments and Ray Scott that we got the catch and release deal going. Now, I will say that that is a direct result of tournament fishing, and if that had not happened, and the popularity of the sport would have increased, which I'm not sure it would have without tournaments, yeah, the fishing would be definitely better. I think tournament fishing now, especially, maybe not so much 20 years ago, but I think tournament fishing now has a tremendous negative impact on the quality of our fisheries. It's not only, our fisheries have been depleted from where they were 40 or 50 years ago, but the fish are just more highly educated. I mean, they're super smart, they're super aware of everything that's going on in their environment. So I'll say that right off the bat with tournament fishing. The other side of the coin here is that without tournament fishing, if tournament fishing hadn't existed, there was a couple things, several things we wouldn't have missed out. I think a lot of the equipment advances that we see in our sport today, specifically about boats and motors and rods and reels and lures, and all that type of stuff, some things that are legitimately, good for the sport, have taken, effect through the direct relationship from tournaments. There's a lot of things that are negative that tournaments have brought on, such as advancing electronic technology, live scope. I look at that as a negative that tournament fishing has done. So there's sort of a balance there about the good and bad what tournament fishing has done. But one of the things I think what needs to be addressed here, more the fact is would it just be better off without tournaments, period? The thing that we need to look at, it would be better off with fewer tournaments. I think that tournaments overall, they provide a lot of positive things. They provide an avenue for people to pursue a competitive event, or it offers an opportunity for people to pursue a competitive sport that have competitive juices that are not able to do it in other sports. Because one of the most addictive things about tournament fishing is that competition, because when you're competing in a tournament, you everything feels different. It's like everything is more alive and aware, and it's more intense. Tournament fishing, especially on the tour level, is a very intense experience. When you've got money on the line, when you put up money, and you've got, if you got some skin in the game, when you're in a tournament, if you put skin in the game and you're in a position to either lose a lot of money or win a lot of money, and some of the outcomes of the event, it can affect your very future. It is a very emotionally charged experience on both ends. It's emotionally charged positively at times, and it's emotionally charged negatively on times. And that's one of the things that I've always felt about tournament fishing. Tournament fishing is no different than gambling. The intensity that comes from gambling is that feeling of winning or losing. It's like both force you to feel something. Now, we'd obviously, everybody wants to feel the elation and joy of winning, but the pain and the anguish of losing is equally intense, just in a different level. So from that standpoint, gambling is sort of like a drug, and tournament fishing sort of plays into that as well. I think that every tournament angler out there, to some extent, is a gambler. I don't mean in something like cards or something, but they have that same type of personality behind it that makes it a little bit more intense. Another thing that tournament angling does is it forces you and it pushes you, I think, to get better than you would if you just recreationally fished. It forces you to step your game up to the next level, especially when you're at the height of your career. I consider tournament angling to be a sport that people are at the height of their career between, say, like 30 to 40 years of age. Prior to 30, people are sort of still learning the sport a little bit. They're still forming their identity. They're still formulating and learning a lot. And then you hit that from 30 to 40, and then I think after 40, everybody starts going downhill, because as you age, you start losing some of your ingenuity and your creativity, some physical skills, and your performance continues to go downhill as you get older. Everyone does. There's nobody immune to it. You look at arguably the greatest bass angler in the history of our sport, Kevin Van Dam. When he hit 50, he just didn't perform like he did in the past, and his performance will continue to go down, even though 20 years ago he was invincible. That's just the way life is. That's just a natural process that everybody has been through. But one of the things I will say is that we've talked a little bit about this in the past in the sport, is there are just too many tournaments in this country. Our lakes are getting beat. The crap's getting beat out of them. I mean, every large lake or even medium-sized lake in the country, there are way too many tournaments. And obviously you're going to say, well, I hear people when I make that comment, it's like, well, why don't you stop fishing tournaments if there's too many tournaments? There's always somebody out there that tries to attack the messenger and doesn't listen to the message. The point is we need a reduction in tournaments, but you have to have that reduction come from the local and state agencies that are responsible for hosting those tournaments. I'll say, take for example at Grand Lake down there, where there was a lot of tournaments. Grand Lake at one time was one of the greatest lakes in the country. Right now it's just an average lake, and it's an average lake simply because tournaments have destroyed that lake. There are tournaments, major tournaments, literally every single weekend on the lake, with the exception of the middle of the winter. And most of the time from March until October, there's multiple events on the weekend and throughout the week. Now, the problem you have with that is you'll have some of the Chamber of Commerce's and some of the lake authorities, they don't have the discipline to regulate those events and to space them out, because they want the revenue, they want the income revenue, they want the tax revenue from people coming in there. And as long as you have tournament anglers coming into a town and throwing money at the local economy, there's no incentive from the state and local authorities to curb that. And that's almost like it's a self-destruction type of thing. It's like somebody that smokes 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes a day, and know it's going to kill them, but they still do it. It's the same thing with what we see with tournaments being hosted by these communities. So in an ideal world, we'd probably have at least half the tournaments we have right now. If we had half the tournaments we had right now, not only would the quality of fishing improve, but the quality of experience on the water would improve for not just tournament fishermen, but for fishermen in general. I mean, do you guys not think that people that don't fish tournaments, the guys that just fish recreationally, do you think that they're not just pissed off at all these tournament anglers? I mean, think about it. If you were on the lake, say you worked all week long, and you came down on Saturday for a relaxing day of fishing, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you put your boat in the water, there's 300 boats, in some shotgun start, zooming off 1,000 miles an hour, driving like idiots across the lake. I mean, I can see how, I can see why tournaments have gotten a bad name from a lot of the people that don't fish tournaments. So it's a difficult question. I mean, to get back to the point of the article, would bass fishing be better off without tournaments? Yeah, it would. It would be better off. There would be more bass in the lake. The bass would be easier to catch. It would be a more aesthetically pleasing environment. There would. So the only thing, since we have found our place within this reality that we have these unlimited amount of tournaments, the only thing that is going to balance it out or meet in some type of a middle ground is a reduction in the tournaments. And if it was up to me, I mean, in a perfect world, if I could be in charge of the fishing in the United States, the two things I would do would be to reduce the number of tournaments and to put some type of oversight on the tournaments that ensured the well-being of the bass better, as far as how the fish are handled, how they're weighed, how they're released, all that type of stuff. And of course, I would put a halt to the advancing technology electronically, because I think we're taking a big step in towards some major decimation in our fish populations. We already see it with crappie. I mean, it's a matter of time before crappie are just getting devastated by live scope. It's going to happen with all the species, but those are the things that I would do. And I would do that for the sustainability of the fisheries. There's no other reason. When I say something like that we need less tournaments and less technology, the only motivation that myself and a lot of people have by saying that is to ensure good fishing. Because who wants to go out fishing and struggle? Everybody wants to go out there and catch fish, but it's not about only catching fish. It's about the experience of being on the water. And part of the power and part of the magic of fishing is to be in an environment that has some type of aesthetically pleasing quality. And that aesthetically pleasing quality does not come from hearing countless 250 horsepower outboards, running 70 miles an hour across the lake everywhere you go. So, like I said, we've sort of created a situation where, and I've talked about this before, we sort of love our sport to death, and it's gotten. I've heard this conversation come up from several bass fishing pros. It's like, why are we trying to teach and encourage more people to fish? Because when we do that, we're simply taking away the quality of the fishing. And that is the paradox. There is a paradox that exists there about you got to have some type of a balance to it. It's like, it's like the state, take for example the state of Florida. It's like everybody wants to come to sunny Florida, but now that Florida is overpopulated and overdeveloped, people have loved it to death, and they'll continue to do so. It's sort of the same with bass fishing. So, like I said, the answers are there. I mean, I've got the answers. People have answers. The problem about that, or people are not willing to do what it takes to fix the problem. And I think one of the problems that we have in this country a little bit is that it's like we fix problems after it's gone too far. We're not preventative. Taking action before it gets here. We only take action when we're forced to take action, where if we had a little bit of foresight into the future, we wouldn't have to go through the pain and suffering that we do on a lot of different things in life. So anyway, guys, that's just a few thoughts there. Let me know what you guys think. Appreciate y'all taking some time to tune in, and we'll be back later. See y'all.